everybody. Welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Lila and Pat. I was about to say that was such a smooth opening, but we had a little glitch. We
Not
are
a Mitch
so glad to be
glitch.
back.
It wasn't a Mitch glitch.
It was not a Mitch glitch.
Yeah, see that?
Oh my God, that was insanity. We will get to that for sure. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I missed all of you. I missed you, Pat. How were your 2 weeks without a show and without me?
Well, in lieu of the show, I have this kitten to give me hell. So that keeps me busy. How was yours? You were out on the strike line, also vacationing-ish?
Yeah, I know. I did take a few days off of the strike. We went down to the beach for 5 nights with my 2 sons and my husband, and it was really nice because my older son is about to go back to college on Saturday. I will be very sad, even though I'm very happy for him. But yeah, we had a really great time. We just lots of family time, lots of talks, swimming, eating and drinking way too much. It was a lot of fun. And I have 2 things. One is yesterday, Josh and I celebrated, get ready for this, our 31-year anniversary, which is crazy because I'm only 29. No, I mean 31 years.
In a row, too, right? Consecutive years, no gap
in a
years.
row, no breaks.
Wow,
that's crazy.
Kudos.
Yes, thank you. It takes a lot of alcohol to make
Your
it.
love is a shining example.
I'm very grateful to all of the bottles of wine and vodka that we have used to make it.
You got a good one. I love Josh. You guys were gracious hosts, and he's a super fun guy.
Well, thank you for saying it. He feels the same about you, and we're excited to welcome you back whenever you're able to make it down. I know now that you have your kitten, it's going to be probably a little
I'll
longer.
be moving down shortly.
Yeah, you can take Asher's room. Yes. And then my second is my younger son, Xander, just committed to play baseball at Carleton College. So that's very exciting. It's a great liberal arts school, and it's also where Asher goes. So I will have them in the same town at the same school for 1 year, which is pretty cool. Playing on the same team together, which is amazing for this mom.
That's pretty rare.
It's very exciting.
Yeah. Good job.
Yeah. So that was all my stuff. How about, and then of course, yes, the strike, but I know we'll talk about that as we get into stuff. How about you? Anything to share?
Just the life of a kitten dad,
Yeah. She's keeping you up at night.
It does make me empathize for the moms. Not that I ever needed to empathize more, but
yes,
you would think just one little kitten, no big deal, but I haven't slept 6 hours a night in 2 weeks. So cry for me, please.
Yeah. Are you able to sit down without a ring? And do you have infected nipples, or it's just the sleep? The new mom situation.
I shared it on Blue Sky.
I'm not really crying for you right now. I gotta be honest.
I did share it on Blue Sky. It was a little too risque for Twitter, but she bit me in the wiener.
Oh, geez.
I mean, there is that.
Right. And you still kept her. That's nice. That's a good dad. That's a good dad.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that.
Because no one's on Blue Sky. That's why I share everything there, because there's like 2 people.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I haven't gone back on. Well, listen, I know we have a hard out because you have another obligation. So we're done in an hour and 20. So we should get cracking because we have a lot to cover. Should we just hash it out?
I say we do it. Let's do it. Let's go. And we got to make sure and cover. I think we missed COVID last time, so that's like 3 weeks without COVID. Yeah. So we'll make sure we get COVID in.
For sure. Just trying to make it through all of the sweet comments. And yeah, I'm seeing the infected nipple stuff. I'll explain it later. That can be a timeline cleanse. All right, let's spin the wheel. Oh, what do we got? Sorry. See, I'm out of practice. This is fine. Third party hardy, climate cringe, Bidenomic justice, and Carpe Diem COVID, several timeline cleanses, and 4 shots that we should absolutely not take off the wheel. Let's
Yeah, I think last show we had like somehow magically like 8 shots or something. That was ridiculous.
It was a pretty.
Let's do it. That'll get me through the show after this.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. Look at that. Look at that. Ask and ye shall receive. It's off to a good start. Everyone should come together with some camaraderie and joy, because it's really hard to find in the world right now.
To the strikers, to you as a striker and your comrades out there in the lines.
There are lots of people. It's really a joy to see, honestly. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, no way. Jeez. All right. Here we go.
This always happens. I don't know.
It's going to be a good ride.
You would think we're controlling this somehow, the rate that this happens, but we have no control.
Into my soul.
It's up to Windows 95.
Only the top of the line, cutting edge for us.
Cutting edge. But Lila knows this, but we searched everywhere for an actual wheel that you could like even pay for.
Yeah.
And it doesn't exist. So if any developer out there wants to come up with something, come up with the wheel we could buy.
Cheers to
the future.
To real people, not AI, creating a wheel.
Oh, we should just tell AI to do it.
Oh. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, baby.
Next shot's all coming up.
All right. I'm so glad that we are getting to this right off the bat, because what a crazy time we are in, where we've got 2 wildly unpopular nominees. We have a Democratic Party who refuses to hold a real primary, no debates. We have absolutely no affirmative plans put out by the Biden administration. And all that is happening right now is blaming possible third-party voters. So first, let's just see, again, this is the state of affairs. General election numbers, Trump beats Biden by +2, 46-44. And if you add in Cornel West, Trump beats Biden again. So no big change, but by 5 points instead of 2. Now, obviously, they're not even taking into account swing states and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that with those numbers, we are getting one shot after another against anybody who might dare to vote for a platform that actually represents your values is really astounding.
I mean, they're pushing it hard. And I mean, I guess we'll get to it, but you're seeing progressives out there now, progressives in quotes. They're making the case that you're helping Putin now. Like, really?
Truly. They've adopted the near tandem Hillary Clinton talking points.
I mean, it's one thing to say, look, I'm going to vote for him in the end because I want to stop Trump or something. But that's not accusing these third party folks of like doing something vicious by preserving some semblance of democracy other than 2 parties. I mean, we got 75% of the country doesn't want these guys to run. They don't want Trump or Biden. And we're not even allowed to have debates on the Democratic side. Like, that's undemocratic to ask for debates.
And they're not talking about, they keep bringing in the newest, everybody from the Republican side primary who might be gaining on Trump is not even breaking double digits. I think at one point DeSantis was getting up there. Well, in any case, Trump is up by at least 30 points against all of his competitors. But the press can't stop fawning over all the rest of them, even though many of them are to the right of Trump on several issues that Democrats pretend to care about. But on our side, I keep saying that. I am no longer a member of the Democratic Party. They keep saying he has no real competition. And whatever you think about Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr., they're running, in the Democratic primary. There's the guy, what's his name? Dean Phillips. He's the only one that really gets airtime. He's like a total centrist. Nobody ever heard of him. State representative, I think, from who knows where. Nothing
Right.
about him is known, and he's the one contender that they're giving like serious time to.
And there's no room for any discussion on mainstream media about the Democratic side not indoctrinating Joe Biden. Like, I mean, every once in a while they'll show. Yeah, coronating. Excuse me.
We're being indoctrinated. Yeah, he's getting coronated. Yeah,
that's the orange Borg over here talking.
Yeah, exactly.
But there should be a discussion when 75% of the country doesn't want either of these guys to run, that at least you'd have a debate on the left. I mean, they're having the debate that Trump isn't going to the debate. That's fair fodder to talk about, that Trump isn't going to the debate, but literally the president right now, they're outraged that he won't do it.
Yeah. It's amazing. All right, so let's just start talking about it. So the two things that happened, and one, is really unfortunate and clearly political, even though absolutely Trump is a criminal. He's disgusting. He's been that since anybody's read anything about him in the early 80s. I am fine with people suffering consequences for their illegal actions. I just definitely wish that it was being applied evenly to all of our political higher ups, but fine. They have now done their new indictment, and also he did his mugshot. And if Democrats were hoping that would help them, Trump raised $7.1 million off of that Atlanta mugshot. So I don't know how it will work for him in the general, but certainly his supporters are only energized by this.
Look, I'm the outlier here, but I still think Trump might not make it.
Yeah.
I think they might pull the 14th Amendment on him. I think it's a possibility.
Yeah. Could be. We'll see.
It's a real, I'm telling you.
I just think,
but suppose they do. Where does that leave the Democratic Party and the Republican Party? The Republican Party is going to be, their voters be way less enthusiastic, for sure.
Right.
So that gives the Democrats the advantage. On the other hand, who is it going to be on the Republican side? Because if on the Republican side, that means some moderate-ish Republican comes out ahead, they haven't been demonized like Trump. Like the Democratic Party has just made Trump the entire problem.
Exactly. Right.
So they have a chance of getting centrists.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. For you getting those like people from the Democratic Party who's far right, and they wouldn't mind a Ramaswamy or a Nikki Haley.
Right. Because politically, yeah, exactly. Because economically, they're pretty much the same. It's just the personality is what matters more than anything.
Truly.
And abortion is an issue that will bring Democratic voters out.
Right.
But
But will it? Because right now there is absolutely no plan in place to do anything about Roe v. Wade at all. They're not even, there's some like creative things where, if we published the Equal Rights Amendment, that would codify Roe. Anything. But basically they had 2 years, Democrats, with a majority, a simple majority, fine. They didn't use it. They couldn't use it because they didn't have enough. They need 60. Is what they were saying. They're not going to, end the filibuster. They're not going to do anything to fight.
Anything.
Nothing. Except tell us that we need 60 people. But they know that in this next election, there is no chance of having 60 people in the Senate. So basically what they're saying is, even if you elect Biden, nothing is going to change because he's powerless to do anything unless he has 60 in the Senate. So how is that compelling for anybody? It's unbelievable.
It's a 12-year plan.
All right. So in the midst of all of this, because there's no offering of any, again, affirmative policies, what they're going to do to fight for us, the big thing, and this is what they always do, is they trot Bernie out to be the cudgel against the left wing of the party. So this was the headline: Sanders hits at Cornel West over criticism of Biden. There's a real question whether democracy is going to remain in the United States of America, Sanders said, which, of course, as we know, when you don't even have a Democratic primary, when you sue to remove Green Party people from the ballot, not much of a democracy anyway. I will say, and we're about to watch the clip, it wasn't as stark as that. I mean, the headline is misleading because it really makes it seem like he had it out for Cornel West. It's not how it played out. I'm sure you've all seen this, but we have a series of clips that we just kind of want to show you where we're headed. All right, so this is Bernie hitting out.
Is a close ally of yours. He is running a third-party campaign for president. He recently criticized you for endorsing President Biden's re-election. Listen to what he said.
I love the brother, and you know, even in love, people have deep disagreements about these things. But I think again, he's fearful of the neo-fascism of Trump. People look at Biden; they don't really want to tell the full truth. He's created the best economy that we can get. Is this the best that we can get? You're gonna tell that lie to the people just for Biden to win?
What's your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction is that it certainly is not the best economy that we can create. That was what my speech was about yesterday. We've got to join the rest of the industrialized world, guarantee health care to all. We've got to cut the cost of prescription drugs in half. We've got to raise the minimum wage to at least $17 an hour. We've got to build the affordable housing we desperately need. But where I disagree with my good friend, Cornel West, is I think in these really very difficult times where there is a real question whether democracy is going to remain in the United States of America. You know, Donald Trump is not somebody who believes in democracy, whether women are going to be able to continue to control their own bodies, whether we have social justice in America, we end bigotry. Around that, I think we have got to bring the entire progressive community to defeat Trump or whoever the Republican nominee will be, support Biden, but at the same time, which is what I did yesterday, is demand that the Democratic Party, not just Biden, have the guts to take on corporate greed and the massive levels of income and wealth inequality that we see today.
I'm sorry, but you have to demand debates on the left. If you want to say at the end of the primaries, we're stuck in this spot and you got to vote for them, I don't agree with that, but that's a better argument to make, because even by what Bernie wants, you don't tell people you have no choice. And when so much of the country is against the guy, you got to show that he's strong. He has to win.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I mean, like, it's so sad for me, but even just Bernie saying at least $17 an hour, like, that is not survivable in any city in this whole country. So how is our most progressive senator saying $17? Like, that is not the starting point. And the fact that, like, he knows nothing that he says right now is going to pass anyway, that he's talking about. So at least put it out there, right? We need at least $25 an hour. That is the basement. But he doesn't even do that. Like, it's so sad. How long have we been talking about $15 an hour now, right? Anyway, yeah. So that was him. Yeah, go ahead.
Go on. Moving on.
Well, okay. So this was Cornel West's response, which was great.
That Brother Bernie's being consistent. You know, he said that all along, and I can understand the argument. I think it's a plausible argument. I just don't think it's a persuasive one. I think that the argument he's making means that there's never any possibility for breaking from the corporate duopoly. There's never any possibility of trying to speak to the needs of poor and working people. I'm fresh from Mississippi, as you all probably know, there in Rankin County with Brother Jenkins and Brother Parker. I was there, the precious mother of Jenkins, Mary, and those lawyers down there, Brother Malik and Brother Trent. They are dealing with issues that the Democratic Party won't touch, which is issues of poverty and intense police brutality. And we haven't even got to the military adventurism abroad. So I think in many ways, Brother Bernie's making a plausible argument, but I think deep down in his heart, he knows that the Democratic Party has no fundamental intention of speaking to the needs of poor people and working people. They are dominated by their corporate wing. They're dominated by the militarists when it comes to foreign policy, and that he and AOC and the others are going to be, in a certain sense, window dressing at worst and at best people to appeal to every 4 years. But the Democratic Party is beyond redemption at this point when it comes to seriously speaking to the needs of poor and working people.
So that's a great response.
I
Right?
mean, he nailed it. The Democratic Party is never going to represent the needs of the poor and working class anymore. We're beyond that. It's neoliberalism and corporatism and all the donors, and the donors are global national corporations. They don't even care. They're not even like U.S. interest only corporations. I mean, we're talking about like, you know, NAFTA a few years ago, or no, not NAFTA, the
TPP.
TPP.
I'm down with
that
TPP.
That fight was if Obama got TPP through as they wanted it, these global corporations could have controlled U.S. legislation. They could have made it illegal
they
for us.
do anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's what the fight continues for.
Yeah. Well, and I know that like even like the UAW is getting pressure from much more heavily unionized countries like Italy and France, because no car is made in one place entirely, right? So like parts that are made there, if they get everything they want that the union is saying that they want, then that will affect workers in Italy. And so they're getting pressure, and the Biden administration is getting pressure from, as you said, these international corporations that stand to lose some of their money when our people do better. So it is 100% exactly what you said, all about this sort of class solidarity from the CEO class.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about policy that only benefits 1 or 2% of the country. We're not even talking about the rich anymore. We're talking about just, I mean, our government is so owned that we can't get shit that benefits anyone on any level through anymore. And so if you think, well, not this election, we'll just have to wait till the next one, this one's too important, we're beyond that. We can't rely on any institutional support on any level.
Well, and also just as a bit of a reminder about how important this election is, this is a little bit of a refresher.
Most important election of our lifetime. The stakes are high.
To be a part of the most important election of our lifetime.
In the most important election of a lifetime, where everything that you care about is on the line.
This is the single most important election any of you in this room will ever have voted on.
And that's why this election could not be more important. This election is the most important election of our lifetime.
It's not an exaggeration to suggest that this is the most important election anyone in this room will ever participated in.
I can't think of a time in my lifetime when this country has faced a more important election. Now, I know politicians always come out and say, this is the most important election. Well, this time we're telling you the truth.
This time we're telling you the truth.
This time we're telling you the truth, which either means they're totally copping to the fact that they lie all the time, which of course they are, but also that the strategy of always voting for the lesser evil has only made things, if this is even worse than it was then, which I'm not prepared to admit, but if it is, it's because the strategy of just nominating the slightly to the left of the horrific right winger is clearly not working.
Well, I mean, the main reason 2020 was the most important election of our lifetime, as far as I can think of, is abortion, right? Wasn't that the biggest thing that the Republicans
decided? That's what they said then, yeah.
We lost it under Biden. So if it was the most important election, what the fuck? So
it's gone, done, bye.
Keep going.
And we just need
the climate's at stake. So Democrats keep approving more oil permits than the Republican Party did. So if it was the most important election because the climate mattered so much, why did Democrats keep exacerbating the problem instead of solving any of it?
Exactly. So, should we show the crystal ball?
Yeah, let's stick with the same network, right?
No, this is their own. They have their own deal. So this is from Breaking Point. This is Crystal Ball, who's a big Bernie person, and now she is a big Marianne Williamson person, talking about how Bernie is hitting Cornel West.
Dr. West, who I love, admire, respect, whose politics I almost wholly and completely share. I think effectively the only thing that his campaign will accomplish is, number one, helping to reelect Donald Trump, and number two, hurting the left. Because ultimately, you know, there's just a poll that came out that showed Biden and Trump basically tied in a head-to-head. You throw Cornel West in, and Trump is winning by like 5 points. And the margin is just exactly the amount that Dr. West takes away from Joe Biden. Now, listen, it's fully on Joe Biden that he needs to do more to appeal to potential Cornel West voters. But let's live in the land of reality of how this is going to work out. They're not going to do that. Dr. West will take some percentage, relatively small percentage, away from the Democratic total, and it makes it easier for Donald Trump to get elected. So if your priority is reelecting a Democrat, and if you believe, as I do, that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are not equivalent, that Joe Biden has been better in particular on economics, but also with things like the withdrawal from Afghanistan, then yeah, I think a third-party effort makes it more likely that Donald Trump gets reelected. And the reason why I say I think it will ultimately also hurt the left wing and left principles, if that's what you care about, is we have the model of 2016. Look, the theory in 2016 with Jill Stein was, if we withhold our votes from the Democrats, and that's going to force them to the table, we're going to have a voice in the room, they're going to have to come to our side. No, that's not what they did. Instead, they demonized anyone who would have even considered Jill Stein. They used it to demonize the left. They used it to undercut any sort of leftward push. And so while I would love to imagine that that theory of the case would work out, we've seen the reality, and that is not what happens. Now, the place where I profoundly disagree with Bernie Sanders is on his orientation towards the Democratic primary. And there's another section of this where he gets asked specifically about the Democratic primary, and he says, no, I think we need to unify behind Joe Biden because that will be what helps to defeat Donald Trump. Well, that's exactly the argument that was used against Bernie Sanders himself.
Yes.
Both in 2016 and again in 2020.
Okay.
It's such a logic problem here.
Yeah, total logic problem, because yes, that is the tactic. That is what happened. They demonized Bernie. They demonized Jill Stein voters. They demonized the left. But that was one election. And in all the other elections, we have done what she's advising and voted blue no matter who, and the left still gets nothing. So one way, actually, the left could possibly demand something for their vote, or say, we're not voting for you, and if you don't need us, great, we're going elsewhere, possibly get the Green Party up to 5%, and do something a little different. Would it wake people up? I don't know. But if we could possibly get a third party, a fourth party, like we should have 8 parties.
What we need is for more people to see the reality one way or another, because what happens is when Dems win, the party goes to the right. When Dems lose, the party goes to the right. Our government just keeps going to the right. So pretending everything is just okay, or being quiet so you get this guy through the election. And then, of course, it's midterms. It's the same bullshit. Don't talk up. It's midterms. We got all get behind the Democrats in the midterms because democracy's on the line. We need more senators. It's not the presidency.
Helping Trump. Yeah, exactly.
The president, all of a sudden, the president can't do anything when it's the midterms. It's not the president. He needs other people. But the point is, either way, in 2016, we lost. So they blamed progressives and went right.
Right.
2020, we won. What's their excuse for not going left?
They're reaching across the aisle because they need a strong Republican Party, and there's some good Republicans. I mean, when has anybody in power ever said we need a strong left wing of the Democratic Party? They're always talking about how we need a strong. Sorry, go ahead. I keep interrupting you. Go ahead.
No, but I mean, you're right. I mean, but what we need is reality. The only thing that can help us is reality of more Americans waking up to realizing our government can't help us. The Democratic Party is a fucking shithole. They're not doing anything for us whatsoever. So you don't get that by glossing over facts. You need a debate. You need third party primary challengers. You need people outraged. And if you're just going to go along with the lesser evil, you're not as outraged as you should be.
That's right. Because you're basically all of the people who were outraged by Trump and said that they could sleep better once he was out, and the kids in the cages, and possibly World War III, and climate, and police, and they all have BLM in their handles or whatever the hell, totally silent on Biden. Totally. You know, there was that passage that I don't even know if we ended up sharing it, but we were going to the David Sedaris one where he's like, I can finally go back to sleep now. Like, he actually was the go back to brunch meme. Like, I don't even look at the newspaper. Everything's fine. It's not fine, right? We know Biden's more drilling. Biden is more money to cops, more money to the Pentagon. Biden is deporting more people. The kids are still in cages, like everything that people pretended to care about. And so now, because they can't even really talk about Roe anymore, the one thing they talk about are trans rights. That's it. And by the way, as soon as it's not convenient for Democrats to slap a rainbow flag on one of their stupid products, they will kiss that group goodbye also, just as they've done with every other group that has been begging them for help for years.
The base?
Look at that.
They're losing the base. I mean, the alleged
support
base,
among
the
Black
base.
voters. 91% in 2020. Biden had 91% support from Black voters, and Trump had 8%. Now in 2023, Biden dropped 30 points to 61% support among Black voters, and Trump went up to 20%. I think that's the highest percentage a Republican has enjoyed from Black voters in decades.
Losing 30% of the Black vote to a party that wants to ban critical race theory and is running on wiping the books of Black history.
Yeah. Yep. Just as a reminder, this is somebody I used to really admire.
You had the Democratic candidate running for something and the Republican candidate. Historically, Vermont had been a Republican state, moderate Republican, not right-wing, and then Democrats. And then we had a third party. And what would happen is debate after debate, television program after television program, the progressive third party people would in fact get the best response from the audiences. And people would say, you know, you guys make a lot of sense. And then you go up to them and say, you're going to vote for us? And they say, oh, of course we're not going to vote for you. You can't win. You're going to vote for the Democrat. You're a much better candidate. Everything you're saying is true, but we can't waste our vote. Waste our vote was the expression. So if there's any term that drives me crazy, is this quote-unquote waste our vote. Now, my own view, and it has been my view for many, many years, is that what we need in this country is what Jackson calls a rainbow coalition. But it has to be done outside of the Democratic Party. And I say that here, and I'm delighted to be here with DSA because they are a non-sectarian group, and we have worked with them, and you know, we recognize that honest people will have differences of opinion. But my own feeling...
They got him. They got him.
That guy should run for office.
He really, really should. But
this is the most important election in our lifetimes.
When we vote in this election, we'll be
2004.
deciding what kind of country we want to live in.
I really believe it's the most important election of our lifetimes because we've never had a clearer choice.
There are only now 7 days left in the most important election of our lifetimes.
Voice is important, it matters, and this is one of the most important elections of our lifetime.
Hyperbole. This election is bigger than politics. This is the most important election you have ever voted in, no matter how old or young you are.
The real.
Ugh, I can't. All right. Should we move on?
I don't know.
What do you
I
think?
do want to, as much as I don't like Sager or Cigar. Or
Oh,
whatever,
oh yeah. Sagar.
let's show
Yeah.
his response, because here's a right winger.
Who I think probably would have voted for Bernie, honestly.
For
This
Bernie.
is him replying to
Of vote blue no matter who I've ever heard. I think it's a bit odd because Bernie, nobody asked him or AOC or any of these other people to step in so early and affirmatively endorse Biden. He never did any of that back in 2020. And now he's been effectively, he's been downgraded to some sort of campaign surrogate openly attacking Cornel West and undermining many of the theories of which he himself ran on for a long time. So, I mean, I can't think of it anything as like, I mean, it's really an outright betrayal of like so much of his life's work and a lot of the people who followed his movement. I mean, not only in order to endorse Biden and not acknowledge any of the third-party candidates, or sorry, any of the candidate challengers who are running against him, but then to openly dismiss and discourage the idea of third parties, which is directly Cornel West explicitly trying to run against Joe Biden and to force change and to try and get some of his ideas injected into the party of which, and even candidates of which he, long was a defender of. That is literally the definition of democracy. So Bernie's saying that he's endorsing Biden or whatever because of democracy, but also kind of openly trashing the idea of democracy itself by running against Biden. It doesn't make any sense.
So there's two pieces of this.
Ugh, whatever to her. First time I've ever agreed with Sagar, but I do.
And I don't want to be one of these guys that insults other newscasters, but goddamn, Crystal has been such dog shit lately. Did I just insult her?
I just, there are different ways to use your voice, and you can use your voice to hit out at the people in power, to punch up, right? You say, hey, you want to bring back Black voters? You want to bring back young voters? Cancel student debt. You want women, don't give more money to cops, codify Roe. You need to make sure that we have a $25 minimum wage. Call out CEO greed. Do anything to show you're fighting for the working class and your base. And instead, I'm sorry, but to use your platform to berate anybody who is trying to, we have so little power in this country. The one power that we have, not really. I mean, there's so many more things we can do. Obviously, strikes and activism and all. But voting for the person who actually is putting forward a platform that aligns with your values, I can't imagine shaming people for that.
And I just go back to the same thing I said a second ago. But if that's your position, you think it's a black and white choice at the end of the day. Wait till the fucking primaries are over at least. Demand a debate and then say, we took a look, we had our guys. Wait till it's settled and it's Biden and West and Trump and see how they're polling then, if that's the case. But to do all that now, to just shut down all discussion is totally the opposite of what Bernie has run on his entire life.
It's really disappointing. And because, again, as you said, you can always in the end be like, hey, listen, we did it, we tried. It's never going to weaken Biden to make him. And actually, this is what I don't understand. We all know that he's a liar, right? So why isn't he at least saying, I'm going to fight for a $25 minimum wage? I'm going to, at least say the words. They're not even trying. And the left flank of the party isn't leveraging any power to try to force him to do anything, to withhold their, and then to withhold their support. All of the unions, except for UAW, to come out a year and a half early. I don't know. It's just really depressing.
Yeah, I mean, Bernie could be out there demanding stuff like he used to do. Hey, I'll support him if, X, Y, Z. And then you get to have this moment before the primary's over, before the general election, where Bernie goes, you know what? He did this guy got promises on this. He pledged his support for this. It's all bullshit. But at least he's on record saying something more on our side politically that puts a little bit more pressure on him to actually follow through.
Yeah.
But instead, it's down to Bernie admonishing folks who adamantly supported him the most.
Right.
And so when we go to dinner and our centrist families around us, they're like, well, Bernie's all in for the guy. I mean, he's the craziest guy.
He's
on
the
the
most
left.
radical progressive. Yeah, I know. It's really, Biden came into power, killed Black Lives Matter, killed the Me Too movement, killed the whole left flank, killed every movement that had sort of started under Trump or being galvanized by Trump's regime. And they just shut it all down. It ended, all of it. I think we should move on because we have more segments and I want to make sure we get to more. What do you think?
Yep, let's do it. Let's
All
do
right.
it.
Yeah, baby.
If you were hoping for an uplifting segment.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let's force a timeline in between. It's a short one. Here we go. Let's do a quick timeline.
1 quarter and 2 pennies. How much money does he have? Jayden broke.
I love that kid.
That's a very good way to work out that math problem. All right, so we're going to COVID, right?
Let's go to COVID. What do we got?
All right. We got some really great news. COVID cases are up 80% across the world. Number of new COVID cases reported worldwide rose by 80% in the last month. Days after designating a new variant of interest, which was the Eris variant, which we sort of aren't hearing so much about right now, but they are talking about BA286, I think. COVID numbers.
Well, what they know is that it's more contagious. So that's good. That's all I got.
It's mild. They said it's even more mild than Omicron. I can't believe they're rolling that out again. They said Omicron was more mild than Delta, but it was more contagious and killed more people because it's more contagious and spreads and infects more people, and variants grow as it's wildly spreading, but it's mild. Don't worry about it. And now they're saying the same thing about this. I just can't believe it. In the US, the COVID-related hospitalizations are up 21.6% in the last week, and deaths have risen 21.4%. So
yeah, and I think we pulled. I think that clip might be a week old. I think it's around 30% now. To be honest,
yeah, I think you're
because it's escalating quickly. There's a huge panic right now. ER visits for kids and schools opening up.
Yeah. Reports of COVID-19 and ER visits from adolescents have nearly doubled over the past week. And, you know, they only ever talk about death on the news. They're starting to talk about long COVID, but all the people in power only talk about death. It's just like a cold, and they're not talking about how devastating long COVID is, and that the more people are infected, the worse it's going to be for their cardiovascular system, for their organs, for their health, right? We have
they're hiding the long-term damage. They want to pretend it's just an acute disease, and if you don't die from it in the first week, you're okay. So you get it 7-8 times, you know, in your lifetime. We don't know what happens when you get this thing 10 times. I mean, you have a 1 in 10 chance, or 1 in.
They say every 10 infections leads to long COVID, right?
Right. And so that means benign infection, vaccinated or not, you could have a completely mild, asymptomatic infection, and that gives you still a 1 in 10 chance of developing long COVID. And the vaccine only prevents you.
But then if you,
and the vaccine only gives you a 5% level of protection against long COVID compared to an unvaccinated person.
And you know that clip that we showed with Fauci from this past March, I think, talking about how 60% of infections come from people who are asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic. And that's something we haven't heard of since Trump left office, right?
Yeah, and
nobody talks about it.
If Biden is here to protect the public, I mean, that should be common knowledge. It shouldn't be something that every time I tell someone that, they're like, you're crazy. No, they'd be telling us about that if that was the case. We'd know about that.
I mean, they have no idea, and they just keep talking about. Sorry, I'm just reading the. Okay, thank you. I'm going to embroider right on a pillow for myself. Nobody talks about it, and there is no help on the way at this point for people who are suffering from long COVID. There's very little research. It's been defunded.
Well, and if your kid's sick in LA, they want them to come to school. If you got the sniffles.
LA superintendent. Yeah. Come to school. And this, he said, Right. I was just going to say that's after LA was at 48.3% positivity. He said that. Unbelievable. Come to school, and we used to close when it was 5%. And of course, as we all know, even though Joe Biden promised us that kids couldn't get sick and that they weren't spreaders, and we have a bunch of, his minions out there saying that it's no big deal, that more than 70% of U.S. household COVID spread started with a child. Of course. Like
common sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So here we are. This is a great, I'm sure everybody who is, following COVID people follows, I always get it wrong unless I'm reading it directly. WSBNBGNL. Don't quote me right there. Great account. On the left is the whitehouse.gov account saying, today, thanks to the president's swift actions and historic investments, every school in America is open safely for in-person instruction, which is, of course, absolute bullshit. School districts in Kentucky, Texas canceled classes amid surge of illnesses, including COVID. I mean, and they don't even list, like, what have they done that they're saying that it's so safe?
I didn't update this graphic.
I know. I told you. Yeah, go ahead.
But the bottom line is all these school districts they're going to act like, who could have seen this coming? Meanwhile, everyone could see this coming.
Yeah.
It's clear as day what's happening. I mean, you have some colleges now starting to mask and cancel in-person classes already.
Yep.
I mean, we know this happens. We know when you have the outbreaks level that we have now, you have a serious problem on your hand you need to contain, and we're just literally letting it rip. We're literally just saying, no, don't pay attention to that. And the propaganda is off the charts. I mean, schools are short students. It's costing them tons of money. That's
right.
part
Which
of the
is
problem, is
why
the way our system is structured.
Right. In public schools, they get money every time your kid is at school, which is why they care so much if your child doesn't come to school, that they're telling people to come sick. Yeah, it's horrible. They have no plan, and yet we know that there are solutions. And because they stopped testing and tracing, we are now there's no data that people can access easily. You have to go online and find like BioBot or scientists or epidemiologists or accounts that are trustworthy who are trying to cull the data. But for regular people who, by the way, continue to say that they will mask if there are spikes, they're being completely left in the dark. So they told us, we have the tools, you're going to deal with this global pandemic on an individual basis because we have the tools. And then they have proceeded to take away every last tool at our disposal.
Yeah. And we now know that the CDC director is telling everyone to come back to work.
That's right.
No big deal. And it's all gaslighting, because if you're hearing that from her and she shows up in public and is maskless like crazy, it's a big old PR gaslighting movement led by the CDC director, who is the person in charge of keeping the public safe right there.
It's the whole job.
Yeah, but the new boosters are going to be delayed because of Biden ending the COVID public health emergency.
That's right.
So that's not good. And vaccine costs are going to be through the roof. $110 a dose for the new boosters.
Yeah. And a lot of that will be covered by the government for people who are insured. So they're gouging the government, which is, our money, which we already paid that money to develop the boosters, but
Right.
Bill Gates won. Yeah. And the vaccines. But if you're not insured, 30 million uninsured or underinsured people face paying out of pocket for COVID-19 vaccines for the first time this fall because Biden ended the public health emergency. And, the biggest group of people who did not get vaccinated weren't MAGA, as much as liberals love to say that. It was people who were uninsured.
And we're talking about disproportionately people of color and frontline workers and low-paying jobs, because they're the ones going to Rite Aid to get their shot, or
who have to
so
take
the
off work,
pharmacies
who don't have
are
paid
the
sick
last
leave.
people.
Right. Yeah. So Biden is killing off his base. I mean, so is Trump and MAGA, whatever. But I know, I mean, everybody knows that they're dog shit, right? Like, yeah. Okay. What else do we got on the whole COVID thing?
Well, so obviously they're ramping up the propaganda, saying
right. It's more,
no
and
big
they're
deal.
even admitting it's more transmissible.
Yeah, more
Which is
transmissible, but not a big deal.
Yeah, just like Omicron.
Because they have the public focused on the acute death. They have the public thinking, I got sick, I survived COVID, not a big deal. I could do that again if I have to. I could do that again if I have to. Because you didn't get long COVID and you're not disabled for a year or 2 years or 3 years or indefinitely. Because we don't have a cure for long COVID.
No, the important thing is getting that economy back up and running. How many billions, millions, tens of millions did Taylor Swift make with her Eras show, which is so funny. It's the name of the new variant. Eras with an I is the variant, but I just think it's funny that Eras and Eras. But anyway,
very soon.
And there is a screaming your heart out comes with some risk, because lots of people are complaining about getting COVID after they attend her concert, which is, interesting where our priorities lie. The other thing
Biden, in fairness to Biden, he's doing what he can to lower ticket price surcharges.
Get those
That's how it
people to the
impacts. He's
concert.
trying to get more people to these concerts to kill people.
Never say he doesn't fight for the small person. The other thing that's really interesting is, if you're wondering why they want the word COVID's never uttered in all of, so many different musicians have had to cancel shows. I think this is from, Paramore. Sorry, I don't have my readers on, so it's hard for me to see. There is an exclusion for most insurance that you cannot say that you have something that COVID, but it's communicable illness is the exclusion, I think. Is that what it is? It's communicable illness. What is it? Contagious. Yeah, viral. So lung infections are, pneumonia, bacterial or viral, is typically considered contagious, and that is not covered by your insurance, which is why, like when Metallica, they canceled, they said they had COVID and they did not get paid out. And that's how most musicians make the bulk of their money, is by going on tour. So when they had to cancel, that's a huge financial loss, and they didn't get paid back. So that's why we're seeing now that people keep saying, sorry, just not feeling great, but they will not mention that it's COVID, which works to their benefit because possibly they're reimbursed for insurance. But it again obscures the, global pandemic that continues to rage in our country and all over. And so people think it's just a cold. Yeah.
But so they do more and more. I mean, we are seeing some rational thought within healthcare systems. Some of the hospitals are bringing back masks, hospitals in New York, California, and Massachusetts. You got the experts themselves, two of the top world experts on immunology and long COVID. They're wearing masks on stage.
Which matters, right? Like when you see them on stage in masks, when people take pictures with masks, that is a signal. That's a way of communicating it, which is exactly why we have, Mandy Cohn? She's the new head of the CDC.
Right.
Gave a 5-minute explainer on the new variant and COVID, and did not mention wearing masks once. There was a lot of washing your hands as the way to combat an airborne virus, but that was it.
I mean, let me just tell you, if there are lots of people out there who believe washing your hands to this day is the way you don't get COVID. I see hand washing stations all over the place. I went to the hospital cancer ward, and they had masks available on the table for people, but people were just stopping and washing their hands at the hand washing thing. Like that was the way in the cancer ward to protect people.
And probably the masks were just surgical too, right? Or were they real?
Well, they were surgical masks and nobody was wearing them. Literally nobody. The only person that wore one was the nurse when she came in the actual room with my friend. That's it.
Amazing. Right. So, and again, is this what you were just showing, that the public want, like 87% of people who were polled say that they want to mask when they think that there's a spike, but then they never hear that there's a spike. So, I will say, let's hear it for, not that I should be extolling the virtue of any studios at this point, but Lionsgate did bring back mask mandates in the office. So.
And I do want to say Mehdi Hassan has never been my favorite, but he is the closest to mainstream media that we get. He's on an internet-only network related to MSNBC, but they allow him to speak a little freely on COVID. So since this is sort of as close to TV as you get, I think we should show his clip on it.
Okay.
Dr. Black, you've pointed out on Twitter that during the summer, when schools are closed, we tend to see lower child suicide rates. You also point out that, quote, school days and months are associated with the 40 to 60% increase in suicide rates for kids. Interestingly enough, though, the COVID contrarians have seemed to ignore the data, and they suggest the exact reverse, that kids get more mentally ill, have more crises, attempt suicides more when schools are closed, when even before the pandemic, you're saying vacation time showed us that wasn't true.
Yeah, and it's not just in the United States, because we have other nations in the world that have different school schedules. So, for example, the relationship between seasonality and child suicide or child suicide presentations to the ER is inverted in Australia, or has a term-based system in the UK, or in Japan follows their school schedule. So this, you had showed a graph showing this sort of steady increase of ER presentations with dips every now and then, and those dips are the summer times. But that when we hit the pandemic, if we keep drawing that graph in that study, 2020 and 2021, we see that the rate just kept increasing the way it was before. Of course, no one will deny that there's an increasing mental health crisis for kids in the United States. Suicide presentations and a number of other things are on the rise. For example, sadness, suicidal thinking, suicide rates have generally been rising, but those things have been rising prior to the pandemic, and they haven't changed that significantly since the pandemic started.
And there was our friend of show, Dr. Howard, on there. We didn't hear him talk in that clip, but yeah, I mean, every time they talk about we have to get kids back in school for their mental health, but then they don't do anything to improve the conditions of schools or why kids might not feel like they are thriving there.
And
there's just,
when you're talking about polling kids on their mental health, okay, how many kids were affected versus not being in school versus being homeschooled, where you're actually with your family more than they used to be? They're probably with their kids playing more than they used to be.
Yeah.
But then the number of people that are depressed in that group, it's got to be largely from losing parents to COVID. Let's be realistic. Parents and grandparents to COVID, friends to COVID. I mean, the death from COVID, which would have been higher if you hadn't have done this, would have probably exacerbated the mental health even more.
100%. And also knowing that possibly you were the reason that your mom or dad or grandparent got sick, that must weigh really heavily also. I mean, there's a lot there. They just continue not to show an ounce of true care for anybody except for the CEOs. I mean, that's all what it comes down to, is get those kids back to school so the parents can go to work, and we will deal with the rest of it later. I don't know what's going to happen when they kill everybody off and nobody can buy their goods, but that's where they're leaving us.
Losing strategy. I think we should move on, just because
I agree.
We only got 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And we do have some more stuff on some of the villains from COVID if we land on it. So
okay. Oh yeah.
Yeah, baby.
Oh my God, it's another feel-good segment. By the way, I don't think we put a worst of the week up there. So we'll just have to put that in at some point.
Let's wedge a timeline in or something.
Okay.
We need to cleanse from the COVID. What do you got? I'm putting it to you.
Jeez, a timeline. What do we got? I'm looking. Sorry, I got.
I put you under the gun here. Sorry.
Whenever people try to change my mind, I question my precautions for 1,000
explanation and news for you. I like being snug and safe behind the masks I use. And I wish this thing would really end, but every couple of months COVID back again. So I'm staying safe till it goes away. And if you ask why I'm still masking, you're gonna hear me say, and don't you know I'm still masking better than I ever did. Trying to ensure survival, avoiding all the viruses. And I'm still masking after all this time, protecting all pieces of my life with my N95. I'm still masking, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not sure if I can handle the whole 2 more minutes of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I almost reviewed by accident because I was looking up. I think is his name Keith Muse. He's also I'm so sorry that his handle didn't appear there, and I always want to give people credit. But anyway, I love that he's always talking about masking and post pictures of yourself in a mask. Yeah. All right. So now we're moving on.
Climate.
We are
Where we
moving
going?
on to climate. This is where we are on climate.
Let's speak now to another Just Stop Oil activist, Alex de Koning. Okay, how long have we got, Alex? I mean, literally, how long do we have until the planet is unrecognizable? How urgent is this?
Things are already getting so much worse. I mean, have you seen in New York, 10 million people couldn't leave their house because they couldn't breathe because of wildfires in Canada. 33 million people in Pakistan last year had their lives completely decimated by floods. The same with the floods in northern Italy. Same with the 40-degree heat wave here, where 1,700 people died in 2 days.
What did they actually die from that was related to the heat in 2 days?
When the temperature gets hot enough, when it gets so hot that the sweat no longer cools you down, you literally boil in your own sweat.
This shouldn't be so funny. Listen, what we're finding...
People are dying and you're literally laughing.
Well, because it's making silly claims.
The climate crisis is killing people.
If you don't mind me saying, Alex, I think you need to grow up a bit, actually, because this is ridiculous.
We've got to go to the news. Alex, thank you so much for joining us.
God, I hate those people.
I mean, they're saying that in the face of this is where we are for Earth's mean temperature rising steadily. That line that's 2023 is just skyrocketing. So,
I mean, look at the peak of that versus all the other peaks. We truly are at an impasse, and we've fucked ourselves.
Yep.
And here are these people on news, like, I mean, that couldn't be more from Don't Look Up than.
I honestly, I wouldn't have believed it. I would have thought it was preposterous if I had seen that. Right. So, you know, was it 2 weeks ago now or 3 weeks ago? Oh, sorry. Well, that's a nice thing. Can we see little strike? Little strike. Give us a bit of joy.
Does he
Look
not
at that.
show up the green screen?
Yeah, there she is. That's so cute. Yeah. So, you know, so today, the Hurricane Idalia hit Florida, but the recovery in Maui, first of all, I think they've only found a little over 100 bodies. They're still missing 1,000. There has been so little help over there, and the people on that island are truly outraged by the lack of urgency. And, you know, one of the problems is that there's just one disaster after another. So I'm not in any way excusing the media for not paying attention or the administration and FEMA for not stepping it up and helping. We are so overwhelmed. Every single day, there is another disaster that is killing people or poisoning them. And you almost can't keep up. So, I mean, should we watch?
You have to. I just don't see there's any way to let the media off the hook at all, because they're clearly not covering Maui for a reason, because it's going to hurt Biden.
100%.
That's just fucking disgusting. Let's hear from the Maui guy, I think.
Okay, so this is a state representative from Maui, right here.
Hey, good morning, everybody. On my way to the Hawaii State Capitol this morning, but hey, I wanted to come on briefly and talk about some of the issues happening nationally and how the federal government is going to help out with the relief in Maui. Some folks may not know that FEMA, the Federal Disaster Emergency Management Agency, is basically running broke. They are out of money. So Congress is trying to get FEMA more money. So Biden's administration, just a couple days ago, requested that Congress provide FEMA with $12 billion to extend the relief for Maui. But attached to that supplemental relief was $24.1 billion for Ukraine. Now, guys, once again, why couldn't the Biden administration specifically ask for money just for Maui's disaster? But instead, he tied $24 billion for Ukraine. Once again, Maui, just $12 billion. Ukraine, $24 billion attached to that, which means if you don't vote for this supplemental request, then you are denying Maui $12 billion. He is holding Hawaii hostage. He is holding FEMA hostage. He is holding congressmen and senators who don't want to give $24 billion of our taxpayer dollars more to Ukraine. And if they don't vote for this, they'll make like, oh, these guys just don't care about Maui. They don't care about Hawaii. This is ridiculous. Biden should be ashamed of himself, and any politician here in Hawaii who supports this administration and the corruption and just the sidelining that they're doing should be ashamed of themselves. Maui needs help. America needs to come through for our 50th state. And $24 billion for Ukraine should not be attached to our supplemental request. Click on this link right here because Civil Beat did report on this morning. And there are both Republicans and Democrats who are asking for Congress to give FEMA more money. But why attach $24 billion for Ukraine to it? That's just ridiculous. Just some morning thoughts, guys. Have a great day and God bless. Aloha.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that wasn't a state that Biden was counting on. I mean, not that that's like even anywhere up in the,
right.
realm of
I mean, how
what's
disgusting
important, but
is it?
like,
And the reason they're attaching it to the Ukraine money is because support for the Ukraine war is down, and they're not getting, the U.S. is not going to continue to support sending all our money to bombs over there when you're getting half of the latest shipment of money that Maui's getting.
Yeah.
I mean, Maui's getting half of the latest.
Yeah. That it seems to happen weekly. There was just another several hundred million sent off this week. And I know we haven't talked, we definitely have to talk about it next week, but it's clearly not going well. They're just sending billions more there. They're getting Europe to, send F-16s. Germany is now talking about trying to start up the Nord Stream pipeline again because they are so devastated by the prices of energy since that was blown up by whoever blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And they won't talk about that this is that spring offensive. I mean, I don't know if they're looking at a calendar. We're done with the spring. The offensive didn't work. So we're just in this quagmire. It's another Afghanistan, which was another thing, that Cristobal said, like, oh, he got us out of Afghanistan, which great. I applauded that, get out of Afghanistan. But like, you can't say that as a positive without mentioning and then turned away right around and got us into Ukraine. Like,
And also, by all measures, even though leaving Afghanistan was the right thing to do, that was ordered under the Trump administration, and the withdrawal was an absolute disaster.
Yes.
So you're pointing at that as one of the two reasons to support him.
Yeah.
It's one of the two reasons to support him, and they're kind of negatives.
There's not a lot to choose from. All right. We're at 6:10. We have 10 more minutes. Do you want to show what's happening down in Florida? Do we want to move on to the economy? Do you want to cry into a glass of alcohol? Where are we?
With 10 minutes left, I mean, we should show the worst people of the world or of the week. Excuse me. They are the worst of the world though as well, but
yeah,
we show that.
Flat. All right. So
or do you want a timeline cleanse first? The cat has made me soft. I have a soft timeline.
Okay, let's do a soft one.
This is a PG-13. This is like wholesome. I went wholesome on you.
All right.
Painted your Barbie with nail polish, right? She told you to do it. So when Barbie was laying there, Barbie said, I'm going to go ahead and just lay here and you can play with me. And then all of a sudden Barbie said, okay, can you paint me with nail polish?
She said this 100 times and I be saying no.
So you were saying no, you shouldn't put nail polish on Barbie, and she kept saying over and over again 100 times. She kept saying, please paint me with nail polish.
She said Dad 100 times.
100 times. And then when she was all painted blue, did you think that you should have stopped painting her with nail polish in your room on the carpet?
I'm trying to get off, but it was sticking on. No, I couldn't get it off.
So you tried to get it off, but you couldn't?
No, it's too hot. I do.
Now, where are you allowed to use your nail polish? Outside. But when you painted inside, why did you do that?
She told me to.
She told you to?
Yes.
Okay, does Barbie know that she could have ruined your carpet and your bed and all of your blankets?
Yes, she told me to. I said it was all over, but she didn't listen to me.
So you told her it was a horrible idea?
And she said 100 times all the time.
All right.
All right, Bobby.
That's very sweet. It feels a little bit to me like the cracking an egg on somebody's head and just kind of like, how is that little girl going to feel later on in life? But it's very sweet. Her public humiliation for being naughty.
It's adorable. Who cares?
It's adorable. And you are turning into a total softie. Yeah. Okay. I do want to say something just in case we don't get too far into the economy. I know that's sort of like the next one that's there. So first of all, I've been seeing in the chat, I feel like I'm just going to call an audible. Just feels like time. Because I just want to talk about what's happening.
Let's just
union and labor.
Exactly. Let's hit that and get out of here. That's fair.
Ready? Cheers.
We'll save the worst people. The worst people are all the COVID minimizing doctors out there right now.
Oh, they're awful. Yeah. They're just awful. I mean, we can rifle through them really fast just to see what they do. No.
Yeah, who cares? You know who they are.
I know. I do just have to say that Jay Bhattacharya saying COVID is over. It's here forever. It's like
in the same tweet. Like,
over and here forever. Yay, COVID. And it was Vinay Prasad saying just unfollow anybody who still cares about COVID. And then I think they both tagged you and said, we found one of these nutters. It was something like this. Bad news. The lockdown fanatics have found my account. COVID is over. Go have fun.
Brings out the smartest people. Like, I would say that the use of the word cuck was about 50% by all those people about me. Like, you're a little pansy cuck. You're live your life, you know. Like, none of it has to do with any of the facts about ignoring COVID. Like, they never talk about anything. It's just, and I swear to God, half of it is AstroTurf people.
Yeah.
It's a campaign that they're just out there. They track big comments about COVID and they hit it with, you're a pussy, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But they never get into depth about anything. And if you argue any point, they're gone. It's just.
Yes. And we all know who they work for. And as our friend, Dr. Howard pointed out a couple weeks ago, Vinay Prasad is on a long crusade to destroy teacher unions. And he's being paid by some of the worst people. Walker Bragman is always talking about the dark money and the Koch money and the Brownstone Institute. They're all funded by these people. It's very clear what they're trying to do. And it's not engaged in public health or protect us in any way. So they're all gross. Okay. I did just want to say, so I was on the line yesterday and the nurses union were out there. They're not on strike right now. They were out there in solidarity and there were hundreds of them. And it's like 100 degrees. They work long shifts doing things that, you know, most of us would pay a lot of money not to have to deal with during their work. So, you know, thank you to nurses who do that. And then to come and join actors and writers on the strike line, leading chants, marching with us. It was just such a beautiful display of solidarity. I know that we're all kind of feeling energized, or that's the way it's seeming on the news and online about the UAW strike, potential strike. And Sean Fain, who is giving good face to being a militant union leader. They have refused to endorse. It's the one big union so far that has refused to endorse Biden. So I'm very grateful for that. His demands are pretty big, and certainly people are talking about them. These are some of the demands. It is a 46% pay boost, cutting the work week to 32 hours, but maintaining that raise in pay. Unionization of electric vehicle facilities is another demand, along with the restoration of pensions and health benefits that were cut during the Great Recession and never restored. 97% of the UAW voted to authorize a strike. My fear, and it's my fear about what's going to happen with the writers and actors, is what happened with the UPS workers, who also in the high 90s authorized a strike. They were practicing, and the week before the contract would have expired and they would have gone on strike, it was announced that Sean O'Brien had forced that the leader of the Teamsters had forced UPS into a historic deal. And that was one headline after another. Look at what happened, his militancy. He's so great, the way he comes and he pounds the table, and his militancy forced this historic deal. And nobody on corporate media news was talking to any of the rank and file workers about what they felt about it. And instead, there was this enormous pressure to sign off on the deal, vote yes. I think they have finished, because I think it was the 2nd to the 22nd was their voting. But they were basically bullied into voting for something that maintained a two-tier system, that left part-time workers out in the cold, that didn't even come, you know, close to the raise that they had asked for. They were told it was unrealistic by their negotiators. So, but all we hear is the historic, you know, headline. And I'm very concerned that the same thing is going to happen with writers and actors, and possibly with UAW. And I think that the only way to combat that is to have a lot of mass solidarity amongst all the unions, rank and file members, and start committees where we demand some transparency. We know how they're negotiating. We see that the books are open, and that we aren't told what is realistic and what isn't. But until that happens, the balkanization of all these different unions is keeping us all separated. And the headlines coming out of corporate media are going to tell people, just like Biden is the most pro-union climate next FDR president, that we need to sign on to a historic deal. So be aware of those headlines.
Yeah, and that's why they do it. They're taking Biden's weakest area. Well, that's the bold statement. It's not his weakest area, but they're taking a weakness for Biden, which is that he's not pro-union, and he's wrapping his arms around it like he's the biggest pro-union guy. And that makes it hard for us to convince our normie, centrist, regular old Democratic friends that Biden isn't the most pro-union. And it makes it seem like, well, the workers are asking for too much if their leaders are compromising so early on these things. So we really do need rank and file groups to challenge the leadership, as seen by the nurses union endorsing Biden before the primaries even started. I mean, you know, at the same time, they're calling for masking to be returned to health. Who is it that led this country to remove masks? Who's the one pretending pandemic is over? And you just endorsed it.
Veto Medicare for all.
Right. So we do need we do need the rank and file. And I shared a great article, find it on my feed. I think Lila shared it too.
From a
it's an
World
article-
Socialist website about
Yeah.
forming rank and file committees.
Yep.
Please
go read that.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all. I know you have to leave. We're going to go out on a song, a revolutionary song by a young woman. Maybe some good art will come out of these really rough times. Thank you all for joining us. Cheers. Keep punching up. We'll see you next week.
My sister can't afford a house and she thinks it's her fault. She says if she worked harder she'd have money in the vault. And my mother needs a surgery, her hand's always in pain. But she fell ill last April and used up all her sick days. Say the homeless need to disappear, extract them like a tumor, a stain on our society. They're all broken consumers. Don't try to put the blame on us, they ruin their own lives. It's not our fault that they got hooked on drugs that we prescribed. Stars for the silver spoons, for the poor, stars for the nightly news, stripes if you oppose the war, stars if you steal the land, stripes if you take a stand, stars if you march in time, stripes if you don't fall in line. Send our babies off to school, the children are the future. Then teach them how to hide beneath their desks for active shooters. Oh, we could make a difference if we weren't so fucking tired. But who's got time to fight when we're just trying to survive?